morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. As per schedule, we'll be starting at 9 a.m. Please make a note. As soon as you enter the session or join the session, please enter your name, your institution name, and your registered email ID on your question answer panel. The question answer panel will be only viewed by the moderator, which is private. This information will be used for tracking your participation and verification of attendance. Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to everyone for being part of this international webinar. An eminent personality once said, "Technology is best when it brings people together." And this is what we are actually witnessing today. Myself, Cheryl Sophia Dicoto, from the Department of Computer Science, Jyoti Nivas College, Autonomous, Bangalore. On behalf of Jyoti Nivas College, Autonomous, I extend a very warm welcome to our resource person, Mr. Nithin George Eapen, for accepting our invite and readily agreeing to do the webinar, even though he is in a totally different time zone. Thank you, sir, for taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you so much, sir. I also welcome all the professors, assistant professors, and the students, research scholars from various colleges and institutions to this international webinar. As you already know, our topic for today is blockchain technology, and our renowned speaker is Mr. Nithin George Eapen, who is a founder, CEO of Chance River, USA. Let's begin the webinar with the lighting of the lamp by Dr. Sister Elizabeth Suyes, Principal of Jyoti Nivas College, followed by a prayer by Ms. Christina Joy.
Let us pray. Loving God, as we find ourselves at the beginning of a new day, we thank you for bringing us together for this webinar during trying times. Lord, we pray that you restore and uplift our purpose in the field of education. May your presence prevail through this webinar, and we ask you to ignite our minds with your gracious wisdom and knowledge. We place our dear principal, Dr. Sister Elizabeth, into your loving care. Lord, we pray that you continue to protect her and keep her safe. We pray for the management and the organizers of this webinar. We also submit our resource persons and our dear students and participants into your hands. May this day see accomplishment of the fruitful efforts of all those who worked towards making this day possible. God, we pray that you give to each member present here the gift of spirit, wisdom, understanding, right judgment, courage, and knowledge. Amen.
Jyoti Nivas College Autonomous is a minority Christian educational institution founded by the Sisters of St. Joseph of Taos and affiliated to Bangalore Central University since its inception in 1966. The college has remained steadfast in its aim of providing quality education in the humanities, sciences, commerce, management, and occasional courses by fulfilling the highest standards of intellectual excellence, code of ethical values, women empowerment, career advancement, and social relevance. Education of Jyoti Nivas College is also intended to develop moral and spiritual values while preserving the essence of Indian culture. We also strive to inculcate in our students a worldview which will equip them for global citizenship and competence. Jyoti Nivas College has completed 54 years of its meaningful existence, crossing one milestone after another. The college has seen state-of-the-art infrastructure development and introduction of courses that are relevant and challenging. I'm glad to note that today the college ranks among premier women's institutions in the state and in the country. We are living in times which can be described as strange today, unprecedented, challenging, demanding, stressful. We are living in times which are challenging us to go beyond our normal capacities, leaving behind our comfort zones. Times are forcing us to explore and equip ourselves with skills which we had always considered as needed only in the corporate world. Today, all these barriers are being toned down, boundaries are being crossed, outlooks are expanding, perspectives are changing. Adaptation has become the ruling principle today. Adapt to changing times. No one can claim today that they lack the skill or don't possess that skill. Learn, adapt, move on has become the mantra of today. COVID-19 has taught us two important lessons of life: social responsibility and adaptability. These two life skills are being honed as never before. Adaptability is the new avatar of Darwin's theory of the survival of the fittest. If this new law of the pandemic makes it sound scientific and callously indifferent to human suffering, the second lesson that COVID-19 has taught us balances the equation social responsibility. COVID has taught us an all-important life lesson which was always there in Indian philosophical thought. Paropkarartham idam shariram, others before self. It's not enough. We are strong with high immunity levels. Others may not be so strong and may have low immunity level and may be highly vulnerable. We have to think of them and make sure we don't become spreaders. We cannot take the stand that Cain took when God asked him where Abel was. Cain says, "I am not my brother's keeper." COVID has taught us that we are our brother's keeper. COVID has taught us to think beyond ourselves, to get out of our narrow, insular prejudices and think globally. Again, this idea was always there in Indian philosophical thought. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Each one of us will prosper only if all of us prosper. Each one is safe only if all of us are safe. The pandemic has thrown up challenges never dreamed of before. Technology is playing a bigger and bigger role in our lives. Online is a new buzzword. Portals, platforms have become household terms. Technology is no longer confined to industry and the corporate world. It has crashed like anything into the academic world. E-teaching and learning have become the norm of today. The ongoing COVID crisis has changed the dimension and approach towards education. The impact of this crisis is long-term. Academicians and students will have to embrace modern technology and digital pedagogy as learning mechanisms. The young and the old are challenged like never before to become techno-savvy. Informed and productive use of digital media is going to be the game changer for the field of education in the future. Our yearning to learn new things will never fade. And in keeping with the recent changes, we adapted very quickly the digital forum through organizing online webinars and meetings to be academically active and progressive in our thinking. On this note, I invoke the blessings of the Almighty that we stay safe and healthy. I bid a warm welcome to all the delegates to this webinar. I also welcome all the panelists of the webinar. May the fellowship of the faculty members between the colleges thrive. May this platform, which has brought all of us together, ignite our minds and enhance our commitment towards our student community. As I wish the organizers of the webinar today, I wish each one of you God's abundant blessings. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And that was our beloved principal, Dr. Sister Elizabeth, who is our constant source of encouragement. Thank you, Sister, for your inspiring word and for all words of wisdom that radiates a source of energy within us. This message was very much required for all of us in these trying times. I now invite our very dear Mrs. Neeta Joffin, Assistant Professor, Head of the Department of Computer Science, who is also an inspiration to us to introduce the speaker of the day. I welcome you, ma'am.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker, Mr. Nithin Eapen, who will be talking about blockchain technology. Nithin Eapen is a well-known crypto evangelist, speaker, investor, mentor, and the founder of Chance River. Chance River delivers innovative and expert-level solutions to a spectrum of reputed clients globally. Besides taking care of the private crypto portfolio, is an advisor to multiple startups and a mentor at the Techstars Blockchain Accelerator program and an educator. He is a creator of the Bellpoint Crypto Index and holds a degree in engineering from the Wright State University in Ohio, as well as a master's in financial mathematics from the University of Chicago. Prior to Chance River, Nithin was a chief investment officer for a crypto venture fund, founder of a software services firm, market maker at a major investment bank, and a software developer building high-frequency, low-latency trading systems. He lives in Connecticut with his wife and 5 children. We welcome you, sir. Over to you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes. Are we good?
Yeah. I have few instructions for the participants.
Sure.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Participants, please note, throughout the live session, you can post your questions on the chat box, and during the question answering session, the moderator will pick the relevant questions and present it to the speaker. Thank you. Sir, you can take over.
All right. Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible. If I'm not, please do chat over here. And welcome to this session on Introduction to Blockchains and Cryptocurrency. This session was planned for the CS graduates, and I see that there are other people also, which is fine. And so it'll be kind of an overview. It's not going to be a deep delve into the technicals because we only have 1 hour. Blockchains are an intersection of math, cryptography, distributed computing, politics, and economics. So an hour is not enough to touch the surface of any of these fields. But this is to get you started so that, it's to show you the philosophy behind it, or what is the benefit of learning something like this, all right? Because every tech detail, most of the things are there online, and you can go ahead and get those details. So this is just to get you interested or to pique your interest, okay? So my background, I am from Kerala originally. I'm an entrepreneur and a technologist and an investor. I have done multiple kinds of jobs, what do you say, Ms. Neeta had said. I was a market maker, I was a technologist, I'm a founder. I used to play poker for a living. So until I found my passion with Bitcoin and blockchains, this was accidental. It just, the reason why I like this field is because, so I was always interested in the libertarian philosophy, and I was looking for how societies can become better or prosper, okay? When I say better, I mean in the real prosperity terms. And I found that free markets help a lot in that, and Bitcoin was one of the free market solutions for money. And when you start learning about Bitcoin and blockchains, you have to know about politics, economics, distributed computing, and I said cryptography and all that. And all these fields and subjects were very interesting. Now, just saying that, so keep in mind, this is, since I can't see you guys, always remember to post questions so that we can know what the questions are coming. And according to that, I will, move the talk based on your interests, okay? The idea is I'll speak for some time and then we'll open it to questions. I'll answer those questions, and if we have to go beyond that, we will give a separate link, and we can do a face-to-face interaction also, just so that you know. All right. Now, basically, I think that, so it starts from Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is supposed to be the greatest social, political, economic revolution. Okay. Now, what is Bitcoin? It's digital money. In very simple terms, it's digital money. That's how I can explain it. All right. Well, then the question would come, isn't the dollar or a rupee also digital, right? You can go online and send the dollar and the rupee from one account to another account, right? Just like the way you use your credit cards. It's all ones and zeros. So what is the difference with Bitcoin when I say it's a digital? The real explanation is it's a peer-to-peer cash mechanism, all right? So what's the difference? So real money, when I say money, it means typically the money that we use as currency notes, right? When you're transferring currency right now, there is always a middleman. You're not knowing sometimes, but there's always a middleman involved. So let's say you go to your bank account, you make a transaction, sending from person A to person B. Realistically, it's not like you're giving the money to that, from person A is not giving the money to person B. There is the bank that is doing it for you. It does some functions. The bank is called the custodian, the trusted custodian or the trusted middleman, all right? Why are you using a bank? Because you want to transfer the money and let's say person B says, I never received it. So the bank is there to ensure that, they maintain the state of the transaction. Like they make sure that you have the money, person A has the money. They make sure that it is not counterfeit money. And then they make sure that person B gets it, right, in his account. So the middleman or the trusted middleman is doing all these features, which are very important. Now, the reason where you have middleman is there is always a question of trust when two people are doing a transaction, all right? So the middleman is solving that problem. With Bitcoin, what has happened is through technology, we have been able to prove that you can send money from person A to person B without the need of a middleman. You're distributing trust to all the people involved in the ecosystem. So we'll get there slowly, but just so that this was the start, okay? Now, let me ask you this. Why are you here? In the sense, people who are studying computer science, is it because you just love computer science or your parents asked you to be there? In reality, you're doing it so that you can get a good job. And is it just to get a job? No. End of the day, it is to get money, right? You got to get paid because you have to afford a lot of things. Like you have to, maybe pay off loans, you have to buy a house, buy a car. It all translates to money. I'm not saying money is the end of everything. It's not something that's going to measure your success or happiness. Nothing like that is going to come out of money. But all the things that we do involves money, all right? Despite the fact that, you've been going to school for what, 12 plus 4, 16 years, right? Most people who go to school, you finish 12th grade, then you go through a 4-year degree course. And the end result is we are doing it to make a living or to make money. But nowhere they teach you exactly what is money. So realistically, what is money? If you try to boil it down, what is it? It is a language of transactions. So transactions is fundamental for the growth of humans, okay? We have evolved from being an ape or whatever we were before, or tribal societies or cultures who are fighting with each other, because we learn how to trade and cooperate and coordinate. So that is a very, very fundamental piece, okay? Now, money is also kind of fiction. What I mean by fiction is it only exists in the human mind. Now, I'll give you an example. So let's say you go to a zoo close by and you see a monkey over there. Try to offer it, 1 crore rupees. Give him 1 crore, and let's say if he has a banana in his hand, try to do that transaction. See, no other species values money, and it's just paper. If you really look at it, what is the money that you're offering it? It's paper. That's why the animal is going to tell you, bugger off. I don't want this paper. It's useless. It's just a piece of paper. It's as good as the toilet paper that you're using. In many countries, when the value of money goes down, it becomes the toilet paper becomes costlier than money, right? Because this is not even good. You can't even use it for wiping yourself. So it is in the mind of the human being that there is the reason for money. So that is what I mean by it is a shared fiction among the species. We believe in it. All right. Now we have to look at the origins. Where did it come from? Most money that we know has come from some commodity. Commodity in the sense, so when you go back in time, there's always something that people collect. It used to be seashells, it could be gold, it could be some valuable object, all right? So it came from some commodity, and those commodities, when you're using it a lot, you can see that everybody starts using it and it becomes like money. So it has some functions. Basically, money has some functions and it has some properties. Functions are the main function of money. It's to store value and it's a medium of exchange. Okay. Now the properties, we'll go to the properties slowly, all right? Now, as I said, money has two, it's a unit of measurement also, okay? So it's not like these are the only two functions. It's a unit of measurement. It's a store of value, and it has some properties. Like the earlier money used to be, it was not homogeneous. Like let's say people have used in history, they've used tobacco for money. The problem with tobacco is it's not like all tobacco is the same. You can, the tobacco you grow from one farm may not be the same as grown from the other farm. So it's not homogeneous, all right? Then it has to be fungible. Fungible in the sense you should be able to replace one of the items. So let's say if I borrowed 100 rupees from you and I spend it, I might get some other 100 rupees and I'll return it to you. But it's not the same 100 rupees I took from you, right? And it doesn't matter to you. You don't care if it's the same 100 rupees. You just wanted 100 rupees back. So that's what fungibility means. I can return something else which has the same value and you're okay with it. So initially seashells used to be money. The problem with seashells was, you couldn't get two seashells that look exactly the same or it couldn't be of the same value, right? So that's why it then moved on to metals. Now metals had properties that were far more superior than the earlier money, like tobacco, salt. Like if it was salt, the problem is you have moisture in the air, your salt will become water, or it gets wet. Same with tobacco. Now metals were homogeneous, they were fungible in the sense you could break it down. Now metals, it was not easy to transport them when you have a lot of money, right? And then it became slowly paper money developed. China came up with the idea of paper money and it took a long time to get adopted. Gold became money. Now what is gold? It's a useless thing. Where does it get its value? Now before we get into value, what is the price of gold right now? Let's assume for a sovereign it's 30,000 rupees. Okay, what is that? That's a price of gold. Now that is way more different than the value of gold. Okay, these are two different things. Price is a quantitative thing. It is a ratio. It is a ratio of one thing to another. If I say a burger is 10 rupees, it is a ratio of one burger to rupees. So a burger is 10 rupees, it's a ratio. Now value is very subjective. Like I might value a car, an old car that was given to me by my father, very valuable, and I might not even sell it for any price, okay? So that is value. It's subjective. I might like my car, which is old, but you might think it's a piece of junk. So there, the price might be different. We won't come to the terms with the same prices over there. Prices help us transact things because fundamentally, as I told you, we as human beings, we transact with each other. So earlier in time, when we were transacting, it was like, let's say that you're the only person, like we'll take Robinson Crusoe on the island. You're the only person on the island. There's no transaction. There's one more person. Man Friday came up, then you might transact. It might be barter system, like person B or the second person might be fishing all the time and I might be growing apples. If I want to get some fish, I might offer him some apples and he might be tired of the fish. We might exchange apples to fishes. Now, this is called the double coincidence of wants. I have apples, person B has fish, he needs apples, I need fish, we can exchange it, barter. This is very inefficient as the economy grows because now you have, let's say I want fish, but the guy who has fish, he doesn't want apples. Maybe he wants oranges. Now I have to find a guy who has oranges, who might be willing to exchange the orange for fish, and then I can use the apple. We get into this triangular kind of trade. Now, this is where something that is in between, some commodity that is in between, something else we can use instead of this. So the earlier, the transaction which is called barter system or direct exchange. Now we're using something else instead of that. I'm saying if all of us are willing to use gold, let's use gold instead of our products. And then that has become something like an indirect exchange. All right. So we have direct exchange, indirect exchange, money has come up, and the money that we have right now, it moved from gold to fiat paper money. So this evolved from, let's say, this has happened for something like, it took around 7,000, 8,000 years, okay? From seashells to get to gold, and it took a long time for gold to become accepted. And then from gold to paper, again, it took a long time, all right? Now, money having value, or anything having value for that matter, okay? It's something called social consensus or collective delusion, all right? Social consensus in the sense or collective delusion means regarding price of any object. So let's assume that, you know, you're going to sleep tonight. I'll bring gold because, you know, it's very easy to explain things in gold. Let's say you're going to sleep tonight, and gold was, a sovereign was worth 30,000 rupees. You had 30,000 rupees in your bank, and you decided, you know, tomorrow morning I'm going to buy gold. All right, you know the price, you were willing to spend 30,000. Let's say tomorrow morning you woke up in the market, you go to the gold market, you go to the shop. Suddenly the price of gold has fallen to, let's say, 10,000 rupees. You're not willing to give 30,000 rupees for gold because everybody else around you is saying it's only 10,000 rupees. You had planned to pay 30,000 yesterday night, but today morning you're not planning to pay that 30,000 anymore because everybody around you is not willing to pay it. So that's what I mean by social consensus. It's people around you, you are trying to be with them. And for any liquid asset, the price is based on social consensus or collective delusion. If everybody around you is willing to make gold money, you're also willing to make gold money. If everybody around you is willing to make a worthless piece of paper with color on it money, there you go. You are also willing to make that as your money. Now, so let's recap on what we went through. Okay, so why I'm explaining about money is because this is the fundamental philosophy behind blockchains and Bitcoin. Okay, that is the reason we're going through it. Now we've explained in very short sentences what is a Bitcoin, just preliminary stuff. Then we explained about money, its roots, its origins, then the functions of money, some of the properties of money. You know, money has to be scarce. You cannot make water money. Even though water is more useful, there's water everywhere. Like if water was so scarce, there's only a drop, it would have been, maybe we could have tried to use it as money. So it has to be scarce. It has to be hard to forge. Like take a digital picture. You make pictures on your phones. You're sending it to people. It's digital, but you cannot make it money. Why is that? Because all of us easily can make a copy of it. If everybody has plenty of it, nobody needs it, right? It has to be hard to forge it and it has to be, as I said, it has to be portable, fungible, homogeneous, all right? Now, that being said, there are some kind of problems with our money, all right? Now, as I said, we need to make money. The different ways to make money also, let me explain. There are fundamentally, if you boil it down, there are two ways to make money. One is the old way where the kings and all those conquerors used to do it. You see, they used to go and conquer the guy next door and, you know, take the wealth away, which is equated to money. Wealth is equated to money usually. Okay, when you're saying I have wealth or I have value, that's what you say. Now, the second way of doing this was you make something, you do work, you provide value, you make something valuable and you exchange it with somebody else. He has made something else that's valuable, as I said. I worked on my farm, created apples, you went fishing, you created fish, we are exchanging value. This is a better way of making money because if you start conquering and plundering somebody right next to you because you have the might, after that, you know, you're going to spend it all, then both of you are going to go hungry, right? So a better way is we transact, we cooperate, and that is one of the ways to make money. You have to provide some kind of value. When you get out of college, when you're going to work somewhere, you have to provide value. That's when somebody is going to take your services and going to pay you something, right? You have to sell yourself, obviously. You have to market yourself saying that, you know, if I know how to code Java or C++, and he might need somebody who knows how to code it so that he can create something over there for his client. And that is the process of exchanging value. So these are all fundamental things, right? Money, collective delusion, what becomes money, how do you make, what are the different ways of making money? Now, let's go into the problem of today's money. Today's money, what we refer to, all of us refer to, is paper money or cash, okay? Now, what is the problem with today's money? It has been taken over by a government. So before, it all starts with mostly with the US history, okay? In the US, before 1914, there was no Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the RBI equivalent in the US. There was nothing like that in the US before that, and people used gold. Some of the colonies used tobacco, and somehow they used to exchange stuff. Now, at that time, the Federal Reserve, they came into being, and they started saying that they are going to print money. So the initial part of printing money was, they said a dollar is going to be an equivalent of so many ounces of gold, right? It's not one full ounce. So they decided there's going to be an exchange mechanism so that you don't have to use gold. People were using gold, but gold is not so easy to carry around. So you needed a trusted custodian anyway to store your gold. And he was issuing certificates. So earlier you would go put your gold in a bank kind of thing. They would say, okay, so you've put 100 pieces of gold. So we have 100 certificates. We have issued certificates. You can go ahead and use it. So let's say I used the gold certificate and I bought a piece, I bought a watch. I gave the watchmaker one of my pieces. Whenever he wanted the gold, all he had to do was take this bearer certificate to the bank, give it to them, and they would give one of those coins. I had 100 coins, one of those would be his. So whoever had the certificate got it. So that's why they're called bearer certificate. Whoever holds it, it's not like nobody's name is written on it. So cash is something like that. So the cash that you carry around with you, it is a bearer asset. So let's say you had 10,000 rupees in your pocket. You were walking, or in your wallet, or in your purse. You were walking and somehow it fell down. The guy walking behind you, he picked it up. So he's not stealing it. It becomes his. Why is that? Because your name is not written on it. That's called a bearer asset. Now you can say his moral conscience should have been better by giving it to you. But if he chooses not to give it to you, it's still legal and the money becomes his. So that's a bearer asset. Another kind of asset is a registered asset. A registered asset is something like a car. You buy a car. So the first thing you have to do is you have to go to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles or the Department of Motor Vehicles, and you have to register your car. So then they enter it on a ledger, or nowadays because it's electronic, they enter it in a database, right? So let's say somebody steals your car today. The car does not become his because in the centralized database, it's not his, it's yours. So you are still the owner of the car. So some assets, that's how it makes sense for those assets to be like that. Make sense? All right. That being said, so we've explained a little bit about we are trying to explain the problems of money. So the problem of today's money is, so there is a government entity that is issuing money, and they said, for every money that you have, it's backed by gold coins. But what was happening is governments are controlled by politicians. It was monarchs earlier, or kings, and we moved to democracies, and democracies are run by politicians or bureaucracies. So to get votes, what do they end up doing? They have to make a lot of promises to a large segment of people. You know what, I'll give you, 10 kilos of rice free, or I'll give you a TV set free. I'm taking cases when that has happened. Then they might have to run wars. They will conduct wars. And conducting wars, you have to pay your army people. Nobody's going to do your war for free. So again, they have to issue money. So US started issuing more money than the gold that was there behind the scenes. So it reached a point where they issued so much because the Vietnam War was going on, and they issued way more money because the war was a costly affair. They issued way more money than what they had, the gold that they had. And they knew that if all the people come back with the money saying that, okay, give me the gold, I don't want to hold this. Well, Richard Nixon decided in 1972 that, we're not going to adhere by the Bretton Woods conference that we agreed how money would be. We're going to change it, and we're not going to, you can come with money right now. We're not going to give you a piece of gold. So what that boils down to is, so they took away that underlying, the underlying thing that was backing money. They just took it away. So if you look at the dollar note today, it is written, in God we trust. We just trust in God. There's nothing behind it. There's nothing backing it. Same thing in US, in India also. If you look at the note, it says that when you take this note, we will give the bearer another note. If you take your 100 rupee note, or if you take $1 in the US or 100 rupee note in India, if you go to RBI or the Federal Reserve, if you take a $100 note, they'll give you another $100 note. They're not going to give you anything else. It's just they're going to give another piece of currency. So they started inflating money because they could, because they were the centralized power who could do it. There was nobody else that could do it, because it's not legal to mint your own money in any country, because that is the government's power. So governments, that is how they control people. There are 3 ways a government control people. I can say there are 4 ways, but the main 3, let's take the main 3. One is by the control of information. One is by the control of money, because if the government has all your money, you can't do anything. If the government is controlling all information, there is no way that you don't know what is right or wrong. So, and the 4th way is by guns. Okay, they have the machinery. Most governments have the weapons to control you. It's illegal for you to have weapons, but it's legal for the state or the police force, which is the government. Let me just look at this. Hold on. It is illegal for them to have it. So governments end up fooling people because they want to stay in power. It's a question about power. Now, internet democratized or decentralized this information. We do not rely on just status government information anymore. We have ways to get information. That is what internet did. So if you look at the papers today, pretty much every paper in the world is going to a loss. India is one of the few places where papers, newspapers or media is still profitable. The reason was papers or media, because they are kind of a centralized power, only they can give us information, and they are controlled by the government. Usually they end up being in bed with the government people, and they sell us wrong information. I'll give you 2 prime examples of wrong information, one from the US and one from India. Okay, so in India there used to be something called a spy case. This happened in the 90s, right? So a major newspaper came out with a story that these scientists from ISRO, they went out and they sold the state secrets. So obviously they were arrested, put in jail, they were named traitors. It was because it was a leading newspaper said it. Well, after 20 years, it's been proved that nothing like that happened. It was all a false thing. In the US, so the Iraq War is an example. 2003, the Iraq War, the US Congress, they were trying to get, the president was trying to get, somehow they were trying to get votes to conduct the Iraq War, and they were not getting. And the Times reported that, Iraq is holding weapons of mass destruction. Based on that report, which was a false report, it was proved later, US got the votes necessary internally to go and conduct the war. So we relied on these central trusted third parties, and they betrayed us. So anytime there's a central trusted third party, they can end up betraying us, they can end up censoring us. So that's what has happened. That is the problem happening with money. There is your third party is inflating it anytime it wills, and it is destroying the value of money. The problem of inflating money. So let's say you did not produce any new things. You had total 100 rupees with you. Suddenly the government dropped another 200 rupees with your friend, and there's only one orange to buy. You have 100. Now he has 300. The price of the orange, the guy who's selling oranges also know that there's only so much money available in the market. He will increase the price of the orange. Provided there's no other services or no other goods have been produced, this is what money does. It reduces the value of that money. It increases the price of the object, and people who are savers are now kind of screwed at this point, you see, because they believed in the government, they thought the government would take care of you, and there you go. Now, when this happened, so there's this guy, an anonymous guy, maybe it's a group of people, they created something called Bitcoin in 2008 after the financial crisis. It was called Bitcoin, all right? So Bitcoin is this digital thing. They figured out a way using technology to somehow transfer things digitally from A to B in such a way that A cannot hold a copy of it. So today when let's say you have a picture and you transfer a picture to your friend, you will have a copy of it. you can say that, oh, I'm going to delete it, but still you have a copy. It's up to you to delete. If you don't delete it, there are two of you are having the same picture's copies, right? So it's not a scarce asset. You cannot even make it an asset. So anything digital before 2008, there was a lot of research and a lot of people tried to do this by creating something that they could digitally send it online. But the problem was anytime you sent it, the person A who sent it had it with them. And then again, they had to bring in a middleman to take care of this, hold a model, an account-based model to see what is happening, right? So this went on for so long, but this paper by Satoshi Nakamoto, we don't know who he is, it explained a way of sending this money without having a copy. And then a bunch of enthusiasts came together, they built a system from around the globe, and the system grew and more people came in, and lo and behold, before you know it, they fixed the system, they iterated over it, and they figured out that this system or this electronic bits of ones and zeros could be used in their system instead of money. And so they kept mining, and I'll explain the process of mining and all, but they kept creating this money, transferring it between them. And then one day in 2010, this guy put an ad saying that, I have these Bitcoins with me. If anybody will send me a pizza, I will send you Bitcoin. So the first transaction was a guy sent him pizza, being paid it through PayPal, and he took 10,000 Bitcoins for that. You have to understand at that time, so the Bitcoin was trading less than 1 cent, or they didn't have any value because nobody was trading it for money, right? So this was the first transaction that happened. So imagine right now 1 Bitcoin is at $10,000. So 10,000 into 10,000, you're looking at a guy who's sitting on close to $10 to $100 million, right? If he held it with him. So out of nowhere, a virtual thing backed by nothing started having value. Why is it having value? Because more people think that it is a good thing. It has features and they are willing to transact on it. So let's assume that I have a car. If somebody is willing to give me Bitcoin instead of my car, I'm willing to sell it to him. Well, there you go. That means my car, which somebody was willing to pay me, let's say $10,000. If I sold it for 1 Bitcoin, that means, well, 1 Bitcoin is kind of like equivalent to $10,000 in the system of people who are willing to take it and give Bitcoin. So this happened, and slowly this network grew. More people started coming into this network, and they started transacting it. Now, you can know about these things without knowing the technical details of this, okay? It's like Google and searching. So when you go to Google and put in a search criterion out there, do you know that, TCP/IP, or do you know about CDNs, or how Google does the search? Do you have to know about crawling? No, you don't have to know anything. So same way with Bitcoins. So Bitcoin is a digital cash, P2P or peer-to-peer digital cash, or it's a protocol. So to use this, you can just use money just like a credit card. You can buy things, sell things with Bitcoin. You don't have to know any more further details. But the beauty about knowing further details is now you can end up working for someone who will need this skill, or you could start your own company. You can know about this and you can be paid for it. All right. If you're just searching, you are ending up paying Google. All you do is that. But if you learn JavaScript, Java, C++, you could end up working for Google, or you could create the next Google. All right. So that's the difference that is the benefit about knowing further into details, the technical details of this. By the way, just so that you know, I hope I'm not going too fast. If you think I'm going really fast or something like that, let me know. In the real world, I'll get these kind of feedback since I'm not having. Is my video stopped? Hello? Is my
Yes,
sir.
Your video is going through, sir. There's no problem.
It's going fine, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay. So in case this is too fast, please put in a question over there. I am looking at the chat channels also for questions, so that we can answer as we go. Okay. And as I said, let me tell you this. It's like you going to a rock concert. If you're going to sit there quiet, the singer is not going to sing too much. If you don't ask me questions, I'm going to assume that either you know everything else, you know the whole thing, or you are understanding nothing. So either ways, I'll have to stop singing at that point. All right. So let's try to get this as interactive as possible, because right now the question and answer session on the side is the only way we can interact. All right.
Just 1 second, sir. They will check it for you.
Sure. All right. That being said, see, you might think, Bitcoin, so that it's just digits, right? You can't see it. Can we make it money? It means without touching and feeling it. So this was a question for a lot of people. They've been used for centuries or generations by using money that they can touch and feel, whether it's the paper currency, which is cash, or it is, let's take gold, or it's salt or tobacco. It's something that you could touch. It's a physical thing. It's a useful thing, right? That could be made money. Can we make a useless thing? It's virtual. So is it a Ponzi scheme? So the question I have for that is, so most of you are using emails right now, right? So in my generation, when I was young, there was no email, by the way. I graduated in 94 to 98. There was practically no email in the whole of India, okay? Very few people had access to it, and there was no email. So we had something called snail mail. I know I'm just using the term snail mail. We used to write letters. And that's the way how we communicated with people far away. Telephones were also not that available in the 92s, okay? So you could touch your letter. Nowadays, are you sending something that you can touch and feel? You're sending them an email. So is there a physical thing called an email? There is no physical thing. It's just ones and zeros. What you have is an email client. You have a client that is deciphering this, or decrypting that message, or decoding it to show you as, hello, here I'm doing fine over here, or this is what we need to do. So realistically, even though the mail that we used to send has become email, there's no physical thing that we can touch. It's just ones and zeros sitting on a server. So same way with money, it can become a ones and zeros sitting on some server, as long as we have a client on our phone or the desktop that can show us that, okay, my balance is so and so, right? So even if it's virtual, it can become money, is what I'm saying, okay? It doesn't have to be physical. And again, money over time, we started, as I said, we were using salt, tobacco, bananas to store our wealth. You don't want to store your wealth in a useful thing, because let's say you're storing your wealth in bananas. What's the problem? Bananas are perishable. Your wealth will go to, even if you don't use it, it'll get rotten and go away. So over time, money went from a useful thing to a useless thing. So if that is the case, it's becoming digits of zeros and ones is as useless as it can be. That could be better pieces of money, right? And this money, Bitcoin or blockchain related virtual cryptocurrency kind of money, has all the way to 10 digits. You can even break it down to even smaller pieces. It's not like you can only go 2 decimal places. Now, I understand that 1 paisa means nothing, because that's what the whole thing has happened. You have inflated the currency, so the decimal places mean nothing. All right. So fundamentally, when it comes to data, okay, all systems that we know. So this is a computer science. You guys are all going for computer science, okay? So all systems everywhere, it's about data. It's about storing, managing, transmitting, and analyzing data. So you have to understand that data is the new oil. 20 years ago, if you look at the S&P 500, which shows the broad market, how's the market doing? The top 5 companies were Chevron, Exxon, ConocoPhillips, Shell. These were the largest companies in GE, all right? These 5 companies had the largest market cap, or the most valuable companies. We use market cap to show the value of companies. If you look in 20 years, what has happened is the largest companies are Apple, Facebook, Google, Amazon, and none of these companies have any assets. They don't have a physical asset. They don't store oil. They don't have oil or anything. So data is the new oil, but they hold our data. They know your preferences. They know what you're going to buy, right? They can sell the data, and data is the new oil. So computer science as such is a great subject, okay? What you've taken is because you can get into many things. When you're in a computer science guy, you can get into artificial intelligence, you can get into blockchains, you can get into analytics, big data, distributed computing. So all these things are there. Now the question is, do you want to learn Fortran and COBOL, the older languages? It's like, let's say you're in the 1930s. You can learn how to drive a car, or you can learn how to drive, ride a horse. Cars were not that great in the 20s or 1910, That's why you define cars with horsepower, because earlier cars could not even overtake a horse. The roads were not clear and the cars were clunky. But the question is, when you reach 1930s, do you want to learn horse riding? The same way, nowadays when you're learning systems and data, you want to be futuristic looking. Okay, so futuristically, AI or blockchains and things like that are supposed to be the next big things. So you want to know about these things, learn about it, because end of the day, as I said, you're going to graduate, you're going to work somewhere, you want to get paid. You want to get paid in futuristic stuff. You don't want to get on a skill set that is just dying, right? So that's why you want to know about these things. All right.
So
yes,
can I
go ahead. Sure,
so,
please go ahead.
We do have two questions, sir. The first question is by Priya.
Okay.
And her question is, Bitcoin can also be misused by means of hacking. Then how it is better than the paper money?
Okay.
That is the rupee. Can we use it now?
Can you start with Bitcoin can be hacked? That's the question, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the second question, can I put forth the second question, please?
Sure.
Yeah. The second question is by Dr. R.N. Vivekanand.
Okay.
And how is this technology useful for social science stream in education?
Okay. All right. So let me go to the first one, the Priya's question. Okay. So this can be hacked kind of thing. By the way, Bitcoin has never been hacked. Okay. Bitcoin as a system has never been hacked. It has never been compromised. It's 99.9% up. You can be hacked. So let's say you have Bitcoin with you and you gave your password or somebody stole your password, that somebody can hack you. It's like you have money at home. Okay. Let's say you keep money at home. Somebody comes home, a thief comes home and takes your money away. So it's not money's problem. It's like, how is your security problem? So Bitcoin has not been hacked. Okay. What is the second part of the first question? Priya's question? I thought she had two questions, right?
Yeah. How is it better than paper money?
Paper money. So paper money, as I said, okay, the paper money that you have right now, so let's say I want you to think of something. Okay. I'm going to take 1930s. Okay. This is a span of close to 100 years. So in 1930s, an ounce of gold was $30. Okay. And I'm saying in dollars because I know these numbers off the top of my head. We can make it into rupees, it'll come to the same thing. So in 1930s, an ounce of gold was $30. An average home in the US, an average, okay, I'm not saying in the most costly space or anything like that, it was like $3,000. So it's like you had 100 ounces of gold, you could buy a home. So you had three options. You could buy a home. You could, if you had $3,000, you could buy 100 ounces of gold, or you could buy a home. So let's take 100 years from today. So $3,000, let's say you put $3,000 under your mattress. In 100 years, with the $3,000, you can't even get a bathtub of your bathroom over here. Okay, you can't even buy a bathtub. Forget the house. Now, if you had a home, your home has become, the average home in US has become $150,000. All right. Your gold, an ounce of gold has become something like it's $1,300 or $1,400. So 100 ounces of gold, you're sitting on $150,000. All right. So you see what has happened to your money. Your money has been devalued by the central power that was issuing it. Let's look at Bitcoin. Okay, let's look at Bitcoin. We're talking a decent time frame right now. It's 10 years, right? So 10 years ago, one Bitcoin was trading as less than 1 cent. It's trading at $10,000 today. So last 2 years ago, it was trading at 20,000, but let's say it's volatile. People are saying, oh, it's volatile. Maybe the volatility is not bad. You see, you still at one Bitcoin over time. So I use 10,000. I had to use 10,000 Bitcoins to buy a pizza. Now with one Bitcoin, I can buy a car. Okay. So over time, its value is increasing. As your paper money in your pocket, the value is going down. All right. Now for the second question was by who put that question, by the way?
The second question was by Dr. R.N. Vivekanand.
How can we use it in the social?
How this technology will be useful for social science stream in education?
Education as such, I have to think of an example, but on the social science side, like if you're looking at socially, so let's look at it, okay? So let's look at bank accounts right now. So right now there are only there are 3 billion people. That's close to half of the world population, around 7 billion people. Okay, close to 3 billion people do not even have a bank account. It's due to various reasons. Okay, there are many. So I'm not talking. This is not very specific to US. It's mostly in developing countries. Okay, let's take an example. Throughout Africa and many people in India, they do not have a bank account. All right. I'm not talking about all you people who have come from this seminar or myself or anybody I know in the US. But I'm talking 3 billion people do not have a bank account. And there are various reasons for that. One, KYC AML is so hard. Two, you need a bank somewhere close by. There are many people around the world that they do not even have a bank branch within 200 kilometers near their home. All right. So forget internet. You don't even think that they can go to the internet and try to get a bank account. They do not have access. Now, all these guys, because they do not have an access to a bank, and there are many people who live in refugee camps, they don't have an address to show to get a bank account even. So these guys, when they want to do a small transaction, or let's assume they want to get a loan, there's no way they can, because they don't have an access to a bank, they only have loan sharks through which they can access banks, all right? So it is very, very hard for them to get access to capital. Now, once Bitcoin came into being, and now that phones have become cheap and a lot of people have phones, you can transact and you can get credit in Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies on your phone. It has allowed them to have access to capital, which is way more cheaper than a loan shark, which the bank should have done, but unfortunately they do not have access to a bank. Now, regarding education, one thing I can think about education is, so let's assume let's put it this way. You know that nowadays most of the education is done online. So social studies and education. You want to make up a course. Let's say you did make up a course now, or you wrote a Medium blog. I mean, let's say it's an educative blog, and I have to pay you every time somebody comes to read the blog. Okay, either you can put it for free, or you want to get paid for your services, right? Because you also have to live as a person who's made this blog or this content. Now, typically, so let's assume you read on Medium. So you can make your Medium posts and things like that paid. So let's assume I read your post and I have to pay something like, it's like 1 cent per read or 5 cents or something. Okay, so 5 cents has to come to your account. Pretty much Google or Medium or any company, nobody's going to send you 5 cents, because to send you 5 cents through a bank, it's going to cost them, like the bank is going to charge them $1 or $5 or something, whatever that number is. Okay. So what they're going to do is they're not going to send it to you. They're going to keep it in their account. And even to send 5 cents, it's very hard for me to send 5 cents, because practically no credit card or anybody like that will even allow that transaction. So micro transactions, and the majority of the world lives on these micro transactions to get 5 rupees or 10 rupees for their services if they can get it. So that is one of the key things how you can use, virtual currencies, because the cost of sending money at that level is zero. It's truly zero. And even a cost, like nowadays when you send money, like now let's assume you're a really rich guy and you want to do a transaction for a very big company. Let's assume you're sending $1 million or $10 million. There's a cost of close to $10,000 for sending money across the wire, across countries. Okay. Now, if you're sending $100 million in Bitcoin, when the peak load is not there, or if you're saying you want a slow confirmation, the whole process will only cost you $1. That's the difference. So credit card companies, now take India as an example. Okay, we are the largest receiver of remittance in the world as a country. We get close to $80 billion in remittances from our expatriate population or immigrants and things like that. So out of which 8% right now is going as fees to middlemen. So that's like close to $8 billion. $8 billion, you multiply it by, what is that, 6,000 crores. That's like 56,000 crores or 50,000 crores is going as fees to middlemen. Imagine if we can save 50,000 crores because people started using a different kinds of programmable money or virtual currency. You look at the savings from that side from a social aspect, it is huge. It is beyond imagination. Okay. Any other questions, Shara?
So, yes, there are many questions.
Okay.
This question is by Arvind. And
okay.
How can we implement blockchain technology in cloud computing?
So what is the cloud? Okay, cloud is just the fact that you are not holding the servers in your home. It is implemented in some kind of a data center, right? So blockchain, for example, there's a process. I was going to go through that. Okay, so you can run blockchain technologies. So let's take Bitcoin aside for a moment. Blockchain technology, or blockchain, it just means a shared database. Okay, it's a shared ledger. If you really break it down, the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain, end of the day, means it's a shared ledger. So earlier what we had centralized services. Okay, centralized services, a bank is a centralized service. So let's assume I am sending money through Federal Bank or ICICI Bank from point A, or person A to person B, who is an SBI. Okay, let's say person B has an SBI, person A has an Federal Bank. So when we click send money, what happens is this request goes through the Federal Bank server. It goes to the server, and they decide, okay, they're going to check whether I have the money with me, they're going to debit that, and they're going to send the money to SBI. So what is happening over there? I owned, let's assume I said I'm going to send 100 rupees. Let's say I had, 1,000 rupees with me, and I want to send 100 rupees from person A to person B. They're going to debit 100 rupees from my account. They're going to reduce it. So my account will have now 900. This 100 will go to person B. Let's assume he had 2,000 in his account. His account will become 2,100. So it is a state. In reality, money did not really transfer from Federal Bank to SBI. It was a database change or a database update that happened. Okay. There is a process called clearing and settlement that happens later on, where SBI or Federal Bank will really send the money through RBI, through messages, and they will tally the books to make sure all these transactions happen. To make it easier, let's try to, I'll explain it from an e-commerce perspective, in case you're not very savvy about finance. Okay, let's take, you're buying something from Amazon. You click a button. It's just like sending money, right? You click a button, that's the front end screen. You said, I want to buy this book. It's like 100 rupees. I click the button, boom, you're done, right? But realistically, are you done? The transaction is done. The front end or the trade is done. But somebody at Amazon who gets this message, it could be a machine or it could be a human over there, who once he gets this message, he has to go to the warehouse. And in Amazon's case, it's all robots. They go, they pick that book out there, they pack it up, they send it to the postal service, and it comes to you, right? And then this is the clearing mechanism, and then there's a settlement mechanism where they check, did you get your book? Did Amazon get the money? Did they send it to the guy who actually owned the book, the seller of the book? So all these things are happening. Same way in this transaction also, all these things are happening. The middleman, that bank, is doing the database update. And can you just repeat that question again, Cheryl? The question that we were going through?
Sorry, sir. Is it audible? Oh,
no,
sorry.
now I can hear you. I can hear
sorry
you.
for that. Yeah. How can we implement blockchain technology in cloud computing?
Right.
And he has another question as well. What is the current cryptocurrency in market?
Okay. So now right now, how this blockchain is done is it's through distributed computing through everybody's server. Okay. Everybody is doing a mining, or they're becoming a relay node or something like that. Now, instead of that, you can decide to implement this in the cloud, because that ensures that, let's say you're implementing this in Amazon or something like that. You can be sure of that their uptime, their SLA levels are better, and things like that. So it doesn't matter whether it's on the cloud. You can implement blockchain, as I said. It's just a database. It's a shared database, right? You can put it on the cloud. You can put it on your machine. It's just that you need a network of people. If it's just you alone, you just have a centralized service. So the bank is a centralized service. That is how they maintain it. When it comes to Bitcoins, what we are doing is, so let's assume I'm person A, I'm trying to send person B a Bitcoin. So originally what is happening is, so let's assume I had 10 Bitcoins. And let's say there were 5 participants, A, B, C, D, and E in this whole ecosystem or the network. Everybody knew that A had 10 Bitcoins, all right? So when I wanted to send person B 2 Bitcoins. So I send 2 Bitcoins, and I am broadcasting a message. So my broadcast will go to person B, C, D, and E. And it's done through something called a gossip protocol, okay? Protocol is just a set of rules and things like that. So it goes to all these people, and all these people are going to verify did person A or me have 10 Bitcoins? If I had it, what they're going to do is they're going to let me send 2 of it to person B. All right. Now all of them are going to update their databases saying that, okay, now person A only has 8, person B has 2. Well, person C, D, and E are in the previous state. And this is the mechanism that's happening. In the case of a bank, there's only one server and they are maintaining that server. It's called a centralized server. In this mechanism, how the database is maintained is it's using a distributed mechanism. Everybody has a piece of the database and nobody is like a master or a slave. And it's a peer-to-peer mechanism. Everybody is equal in this, all right? Anybody can join. We are sharing the same database and it's in our interest. The interest mechanism is we are not trying to cheat the database. Because if we are trying to cheat it, people will leave and then we will lose the value of the coins that we have. So we are all incentivized to make sure nobody else is cheating. So and if somebody has to cheat, it becomes very costly for them. So right now, so let's assume there are 3 people in this transaction, okay? And let's assume that I had 10 Bitcoins and each Bitcoin was $10,000. So I'm sitting on $1 lakh or $100,000 with me. So let's say B and C together can decide, B might tell C, let's cheat him of his Bitcoin. Let's verify saying that, he really doesn't own 10,000. It's really owned by us. And they can take away my 50,000. But at that point, I will leave the system because I understand that this is a rigged system, right? So if I also leave the system, now they have 50,000 Bitcoin, but there's no value for it, right? Because there's less number of people. So the more the number of people, so let's assume there are 10 people and I had this. So somehow person B, if he wanted to cheat me, he had to get 5 people on board because it's a voting system. We have to reach that finality, who holds it. That is called the consensus. He needs more people to join him, right? So he won't be able to do that. And it becomes, let's assume there are 10 million people in the system. Now he has to get 5 million people from everywhere in the world and he has to convince them, I'm going to pay you a bribe to cheat person A, right? So this is the way, we are maintaining the truthfulness of the system. It is incentivized in such a way, all right? Cheryl, can you repeat that second part of the question that Dr. Anand had? See, is there a disadvantage of using a dollar today? Your dollar can, or the rupee today, there are disadvantages, right? Right now, the disadvantage is in the fact that not all people know about it, okay? So you're in a very early stage of technology, okay, of this technology. It's just 10 years into a technology. It took paper money, it took around close to 2,000 years for every country in the world to use paper money. It took close to 60, 70 years for people like McDonald's to start using a credit card. So it takes time. Yeah, go ahead.
I got a question, sir. What is the current cryptocurrency in market?
That was his question. Now, yeah. If you're looking at the market cap, so the market cap today, as of today, is around 268 billion. It's so small compared to money, cash, gold. So gold, all the value in the gold of gold in the world is like $8 trillion. Okay, that's how much gold is there that's ever been mined from under the ground. If you compare it to the other forms of money or the value of Apple stock, it's nothing. All right. So if you're looking at a market cap, but it's growing on a year-to-year basis. It's growing. If you look 10 years, it was at 0. And there are multiple cryptocurrencies out there or blockchain systems out there. The main ones are Bitcoin and Ethereum. Okay, the rest of them all together, it's much, much smaller. So, and what was the next question after that, Cheryl?
So, is there any disadvantage of using cryptocurrency?
See, one of the things is if you want to use crypto, you practically today need the internet, okay? So if you don't have an internet, there are ways of using ham radio and doing it, but it's hard. So, without the internet, but then without the internet, you really can't do any transaction on your bank or you're in your hospital also. So I don't know if that is a disadvantage. I think it's the education side is a disadvantage. Most people think that this is a fraud. This is things like that are there. Okay.
Yeah. So another interesting question. There's no name mentioned over there. Given the large number of people who are unaware of using technology and those who do not have access to internet, how do we expect the society to reach a kind of social equilibrium in near future?
So it is going to take time. I'm not saying that it's not going to take time. Okay,
Yes.
but the if you look at the growth of this thing, okay, so it is growing very fast, and people are coming to know about it. So there is resistance from various governments. Like India government is one of the ones that is resisting it to the maximum because they are controlling us with the power of the control of money. Because see, think about it. India has strong capital controls over money. It's not fully convertible money. Like the money in US, if I have a dollar, I can convert it to euro tomorrow. I can convert it to gold tomorrow. I can convert it to an Australian dollar. I can send it anywhere in the world. In India, you cannot do that, okay? Because there is a fear, and that fear is real for the fact that if that is allowed, most people are going to send their money outside, okay? They're going to convert it to something else. So that is why there is strong capital controls, and that's why they're trying to block Bitcoin from coming there, because it's practically money. And it was kind of banned till the Supreme Court ruling has now come in that anybody can decide whatever is their money is their money, because it was blocked by RBI. And now I think they're trying to come with legislation saying that through legislation, the government is going to stop it, use of Bitcoins. But till that happens, again, so these kind of things, whether they're going to stop it or not, is like, it's like the Uber example or the Airbnb example. I'll give you an Airbnb example in New York, okay? New York as a state has a rule that you cannot sublet a room in your house, because that's to help the hotel guys. The hotel lobby has implemented a rule like that. So if you were trying to rent a room in your house to somebody in New York City or New York State, it's kind of like it's an offense, and they can put you in jail for that. So Airbnb, when they went to one of the smartest investors in town, they did not make an investment because they knew of the rule that this cannot take place. But what happened is 4 million people across New York State started listing on Airbnb. So what is the government going to do? 4 million people. 4 million is like 40 lakhs. You're going to put 40 lakh people in jail because they've rented a room? Well, it's the will of the people. Same thing with Uber. Uber came, it disrupted the taxi industry. Now, taxi industry is very centralized. They pay the money to the mayor. The mayor gives licenses from the city hall, and those guys are very powerful. But everybody started riding, making their own car and Uber. And lo and behold, before you know, if everybody is making their car to a Uber, how many people are you going to put in jail? How long can you keep doing that? And then what? They're going to vote you out of power, which shows that the taxi industry, which was like maybe 1,000 or 10,000 taxi owners, or do you want another 2 million people over there who are getting the benefits of having more cars on the road? So that is one of the things. Okay. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. How are we doing on time, Shara?
We have another 15 minutes more.
Okay. So, so I just covered something regarding, from the philosophy side of it. Now let's go into a little bit on the technical side, because I know it's all CS people. I can't cover everything technically, but let's see what all can we do, okay? So fundamentally, the knowledge of blockchains or Bitcoins, as I said, blockchain is nothing but a shared ledger. Why do you want to learn about it? Because there are plenty of jobs, plenty of high-paying jobs, and that is the future. It's kind of everybody is sure. Like, you might not be seeing that this is a blockchain, but all the things that are going to be happening underneath is going to be on the blockchain. All right, that is the expectation of the future. Now, for that, so I said this is about distributed systems, right? So earlier systems were like centralized systems. Centralized systems, they have a problem. They can be hacked because you just have to hack one system out there, right? They can censor you. Like censoring is like Facebook is a centralized system. It's distributed, but it's centralized. It's not decentralized. Centralized in the sense you can put a post over there and they can decide and say, you know what, we're taking you down. So fundamentally, most Silicon Valley companies, Facebook, Twitter, all these guys are very left-leaning companies. So if you're a right-winger and you put a post and if it is affecting their audience or their ethos, they can censor you from putting posts. They will take you down. A lot of the right-wingers have been taken down. So you have, anytime you have a central party that is monitoring, censoring, or becoming like a curator, these kind of things can happen, all right? As with money, same with media, everywhere this thing happens. So distributed systems are really good that way. Typically in computer science, you have a centralized system there's one point of failure. You want to have distributed systems. Now, distributed systems are hard. It's hard to maintain. Why? Because there are issues of concurrency. There's a lack of a global clock. There could be individual failure of components. And then there's a lot of messages that are going back and forth, right? So what is an example of a distributed system that I can quickly think of is, think of an airplane, okay? An airplane is flying, right? There are so many things. But there are so many individual parts. There are multiple engines. There are, there's these audio visual systems over there, right? They have TVs and multiple things. So it is a distributed system. It's a plane, but there's so many smaller systems. Now, sometimes your plane still has to fly, even though some of these small failure of independent components happen, right? Even if one engine fails, your plane has to keep flying. You can't say, oh, you know what, my engine failed. So in centralized systems, if one engine fails, the whole thing is going to come crashing down. So that is what distributed systems bring help to. But distributed systems have these kind of issues also. It's very hard maintaining state. Like you are on Facebook or you're on Twitter. You click a like. How are you sure your click was yours came first or who came second? It doesn't matter when it comes to the likes on a Facebook, but when it comes to money, like I'm taking money out of my account, those kind of things matter. What if I took money first out of my account, send it to my, I said I'm sending it to you, and then I took the money and sent it to my wife. So I'm double spending it, right? But do we have a timestamp for it? It's very hard to maintain global clocks, all right? So all these things, end of the day, as I said, it is about state. Always keep in mind, computer systems, end of the day is about state. You're on Amazon. What is it? It is a state. Who owns the book? Who sent the money? It's about finality. There, the centralized entity is saying, okay, you paid the money. It's all coming to our server, and this is how we decide. Okay, you are the owner of the book, and the money comes to us. When it comes to distributed systems, all of us have to come to a consensus or agreement that whose is it? Who is that first person you sent it to? Does he get it? Because I could try to cheat the system. I could say, I sent a person B and person C, but I only had 100 Bitcoins or $100 with me. I tried to send to both people, all right? So that is achieved through something called a proof of work or in a process called mining, okay? That is how it's achieved over there. But before we come into that, there are some concepts that are very helpful. Those are the cryptography concepts. If you know about this, it becomes very helpful. One is hashing. So hashing or a hash function is something like a fingerprint, okay? So you give an input of any size. Your input can be just a hello, or it can be a whole document, and you're getting a message digest, which is like maybe if you're using a SHA 256 function, you're getting 64 bits, right?
Excuse me, sir?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's a question regarding hash algorithms. So
okay.
This is by our Palani. Which
okay.
hashing algorithm is useful for blockchain technology? Are there any disadvantages of? That's it. Sorry.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Okay.
First
so
question,
I'm just explaining hashing,
yes.
and I'll come to the hash algorithms, okay, that are used over there. Okay.
Yes. As you started, just shoot at it.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So as I said, hashing is a one-way function. Okay. Hashing is a fingerprint. So that is. And a hash function or a function is just an arbitrary mapping. It's a mathematical concept, right? You have f of x. If you're saying a function f of x is defined as f of x is equal to x squared, means for any x, your result is going to be square of that. So if you take 1 as your x, f of x is equal to 1. If you take 2, f of x is equal to 4, right? And you write it as an ordered pair. That is what a function means. A cryptographic hash function is like a function that you do this, you're getting anything. You send a whole book, you send a small hello, or you send a space, it comes out with a 60. If it is a SHA 256 algorithm, you're coming out with a 64-bit integer. Okay, that's like a fingerprint of that thing. All right. Now, the more number of bits that you use, the more secure is your algorithm, because so if I use less number of bits, it's easy to break it, all right? So that's why you're using more number of bits. It just has to follow some properties that it has to be deterministic. So every time you send it through one algorithm, it has to produce the same word, has to produce the same end result. If it's producing different end results, you can't use that, right? Then it has to be two different things cannot come up with the same hash function. So that's called collision resistance. You can't have two inputs with the same output. Different inputs should have different outputs. And the larger is your number of keys, you're going to get a better hash function. All right. So hashing is the fingerprinting part. All right. And after hashing, the other mechanism that is useful. Now you understand hashing it by itself is a very large topic. All right. There are different hash algorithms out there. Now the second piece that is useful is something called encryption and decryption, right? Or Cipher. So encryption is about making a message as kind of a secret. Okay, it is using some kind of key and it'll make it a secret. And then you're using the same key or another key to decrypt it. So you have to get the message back, right? In hashing, you don't have to get the message back. You don't want to know your original message. You just want to know the hash. But when it comes to encryption, so that is part of cryptography. Cryptography is the study of secrets, right? Encryption has been there forever. Why? Because you want to send a private conversation. It's there from the time of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar used to send something called a Caesar cipher. So there's a cipher is the thing that you're using. It's an algorithm that you're using to encrypt your message, making it something that is not readable. So there are two kinds of encryption things. Okay, one is the symmetric encryption. So the most simplest encryption is use the letter. If I'm telling you, I'm giving you upfront, I have to tell you what the key is because you have to use the same key to read my message. So let's say my message to you was hello. And I'm telling you, hey, the secret code, by the way, the secret key is I'm going to use the previous letter. So when I'm saying hello, that is H, right? GH. So I'm going to use HE, GD, KM, right? But when you get it, you know that I used the previous one, so you just have to use the next one. So that's how you read hello. Now, these kind of ciphers are very easy to break with a computer today, right? Easily done. So and not only that, I have to let you know that what am I using as the cipher, right? So when I pass it over, somebody can intercept it and my message is not secret anymore. This is used in war and things like that, all right? So that's why we come up with something called an asymmetric key. So this is symmetric. The encryption key and the decryption key are the same. When you use something called a public key, private key, asymmetric cryptography or asymmetric encryption, you have two keys. So let's assume you want to send me a message. I might put my public key, I might put it on my website. I'm saying anytime you send me a message, use this key to encrypt your message. So you use that key, you encrypted the message. Now nobody, after seeing that message, they can't get the message back because the other key, the private key to read it is only with me. So that's a use of this. So you've encrypted the message, send it to me, I can read it. Now when I send it to you, I can use your public key to encrypt this message and send this to you, okay? So we
have a last question. I think it's time for us to wind up now. So
okay,
I'm just giving you this question. This would be the last question. And this is by Dr. R.N. Vivekanandan from Subramanian College. And his question is, Libra is a currency developed by Facebook.
Yeah.
What will be the status if a private company holding the rights of operating cash?
Okay, so there's nothing wrong in a private company operating cash, okay? Now, Libra, their paper is very well written, by the way. It's written by a guy called, I forgot his name, David something. And so Libra, it's a pretty good paper. How they've done it is, in their paper, how they're saying they want it to be done is, so they're going to have 100 nodes as participants. Now, Bitcoin is like anybody and everybody can be a node. It's so distributed. They're saying, okay, but so the Bitcoin, so a confirmation or the consensus takes time for that security. It is slow, but it's ensuring security so that nobody can hack it. In Facebook's case, what they're doing is they want to have private nodes. They were saying 100 guys are going to come in. It can be the MasterCards, Visas, and it's going to be a round robin. There's going to be an algorithm that's going to decide who is going to be the guy confirming transactions. So it can be faster. Now there's only 100 people involved in it, so it can be faster. And that way, the control is not really with Facebook, and they cannot censor. but they can be within regulations per country and stuff like that. So it's not a bad idea. So it's not bad that the private guy is issuing, because the government issuing money right now, they're anyway inflating our money and they are cheating us, right? So what is wrong in a private guy cheating us? Anyway, your government is cheating you. So if you're worried about the private company is going to cheat you, well, the government is cheating you. So should that matter? If cheating is the problem, both of them are cheating you. So that can happen over there. But it is not a bad solution where you have 100 participants in this, and each participant is going in a round robin league. So everybody's involved. But the question is, can Facebook kick the participant out? You see, so those kind of questions are there. In the Bitcoin's case, you cannot kick anybody out, and everybody is involved as long as they want to be. They can leave by themselves and decide on that. All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful words. Thank you.
So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who was here, and especially to Cheryl and Neeta ma'am who had called me for this. It was a pleasure coming here. It's unfortunate that we can't interact because that's because the software can only handle so much limit, and there was more than expected. So, but in case you have questions, feel free to contact me. You can get my details. My handle is Eapen on Twitter and Facebook. That is N for Nithin and EAPEN. Feel free to contact me. I'm generally very active on all social media channels, and I do respond if you have questions. There's so much more. As I said, I wanted to cover Merkle trees, wallets, mining, addresses, signatures, but we can't get there in an hour. It's kind of hard. But there are good books out there who've explained this way better than me. You can use that. And it's a fun and exciting journey. I'll tell you that there's no branch of computer science that I've felt in love with as much as I did with blockchain tech or Bitcoin and this whole space. And I hope this was useful.
As per the request from our participants, so there are many questions, right? So there are around 20 questions, right? So they've requested for a face-to-face interaction with you. So, so we've created another link. So we'll be sharing with our participants. We have a group. So we'll be sharing it in the WhatsApp group, and maybe at 10:45, if you can join a private meeting, it will be a face-to-face interaction with the attendees.
What time is it right now over there?
10:31. Now it's 10:30.
Okay, in 15 minutes, right?
In 15 minutes. So
yeah, I'll join over there. Just send me the link, okay?
Yeah, we'll send the link so that they can have a face-to-face interaction with yourselves.
Sure, no worries at all. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful webinar. And most of us would only have heard about this term like Bitcoins, cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology, but we really thank for helping us to understand what it really is and how it works. Thank you for that, sir.
Thank you.
Now, I just call upon Mr. Charles Dominic, Assistant Professor of Department of Computer Science, to propose a vote of thanks.
Good morning, sir, and everyone else. Just a small, quick announcement to all the participants before I move on. The link to the feedback form will be posted on the question and answer panel on the featured tab and also on the WhatsApp groups. For all those who want to join the interactive session, also the link is posted on your WhatsApp groups and the question and answer panel on the featured tab. So with that, we are coming towards the end of this live webinar. I am Charles Dominic, and on behalf of myself and the Department of Computer Science here in Jyoti Nivas College, would like to extend my sincere appreciation and gratitude to everyone involved for making this successful event. Firstly, I'd want to mention our respected and most distinguished speaker of the day, Mr. Nithin George, for accepting our invitation to do this webinar. I'm sure all of us have a lot to take back from this talk, sir. You've definitely stirred up some curiosity, especially for putting across such complex technology in some very simple terms, which could be easily understood by everyone. For setting up the context in which this technology was born out of, like from where money started, especially the idea of money and markets, the problems with it and the politics behind, and so on. A lot of food for thought. So thank you so much for being being able to join us for this. I would also like to express my profound gratitude to our beloved principal, Dr. Sister Elizabeth, for her constant encouragement and support for helping us organize such kind of events in our institution. Thank you, Sister. I also want to thank our management for providing us with all the required facilities and resources for organizing and conducting such events in our college. I really want to appreciate and acknowledge the hard work and efforts put in by our technical support team, especially Mr. Praveen, who helped us throughout this time, Mr. Anand, Mr. Mikhail, and everyone for all the arrangements. Thank you all so much. I also want to mention the organizers, the Department of Computer Science, the faculty, and my team, led by the coordinator, Ms. Neeta Joffin, for her constant guidance and efforts. Well, right from the initiative, the conception of the idea till now, there has been a lot of effort, time and thought which has gone into making this event successful. So I thank you all for everything. Finally, I want to mention all our participants and students for your overwhelming response and cooperation throughout this event. Thank you all for your participation, and I hope this has given you something to take back. We'll see you all soon in another one, and this is Charles signing off. Thank you.
And where do I get that link, Cheryl? Can I get it on the calendar over here?
Yeah, we'll post it on the Q&A panel, sir, and we'll also send it to you on WhatsApp.
Okay, cool.
Participants, again, I want to make this announcement once more before we end this session. We have a separate face-to-face interactive session, and the link is featured on the chat box and the WhatsApp groups. So people who are interested, please click on the link in a few minutes from now. Exactly, to be precise, it's at 10:45. And also, please fill up the feedback forms through the link on the question answer panel and the WhatsApp group, which will be used for verifying attendance and distribution of certificates. And
Great, thank you all. Signing off. Thank you so much for being part of it. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.